Hi, my name is David and I'm with Master Flo Valve. Today we're going to be talking about a P1 choke. Over here we have a display unit. As you can see the internals, when we operate the hand wheel, it can move. So when you rotate your handle, it starts to travel up. It starts to reveal the orifices on your nozzle. Then you start to get your flow. So today we're going to tear down one of these chokes. First and foremost, always make sure there's no pressure on the valve or any of the flow lines. Small blade screwdriver, 1/8 Allen wrench, 1/2 inch wrench, 5/8 wrench, a hook tool of some type, torque wrench, extension and 5/8, has to be 12 point, Loctite, 271, primer for the Loctite, anti-seize for the threads of the bolt, and then our greases we use, AP1 and AP5. First thing you want to do before you start is you want to release your stem lock. Make sure it's not tightened up. We're going to open our valve. This is a 4-sided calibration head. Our newer styles have a round calibration head. They use this top line to calibrate up against this face of the stem nut. So we're going to remove this first. Now we're going to remove our hand wheel screw. Next, we're going to loosen our 4 bonnet bolts. Now we're going to take our bonnet flange off. What I like to do is take my hand wheel, put it back on. Make sure you line up the bolt with the hole on either side of the stem nut. Now we're going to use our hand wheel to lift our insert out of the choke body. We're going to remove our hand wheel. Remove our upper thrust washer, our stem nut, and our lower thrust washer was stuck to the bottom of it. Okay, so now what we're going to do is, if you notice, here's a key on the stem and it travels up and down in this bonnet in this keyway. So with the choke fully open, it's holding this retainer sleeve on where this pin goes. If we push this down, we can take this off. You can see it's got a slot right here for this pin to slide into. So when we lower the stem, it releases our retainer sleeve. Next, we're going to take and we're going to inspect our area right here on our flow collar. We're looking for anything that would keep this from sealing or operating properly. It looks pretty good. I'm going to set that down. Next, we're going to remove our seat and nozzle from our body. I'm going to take my hook tool. We'll stick this down in here like this. I'm gonna grab it, and then I'm gonna lift out the seat and nozzle assembly like so. On the bottom, it's got an O-ring for the nozzle. That's the inner, and on the outer is the O-ring for the seat. I'm gonna remove our hook. And we're gonna inspect our parts real quick. Now, first we'll inspect our seat, and we'll inspect our sealing area, which is right in here in this bevel. And this looks to be in really good condition. Then we're going to inspect our nozzle. We're going to look at our orifices, make sure they look good. That looks to be in good condition. So now we're going to check the sealing areas and the body. What I like to do is take my screwdriver pick, kind of measure where my O-ring is going to be, and I'll go over to my body, and I'll kind of use it down in there. And this gives me a good estimate about where it's at. And I'll look in there and I'll make sure my seal area looks to be in good condition. It looks to be good. I don't see any pitting, scoring. Then what we'll do is we'll look down in the bottom of our choke body and we'll look in the seat area. We're looking for the same thing. Deep pits, anything like that would cause it not to seal. And I'm talking right in this area. And it appears to be in good shape. And now we're going to disassemble our choke insert. Anytime you put any choke part in a vise, be sure that you're not crimping on the sealing area. First, we're going to remove our bonnet seal, taking care not to scratch any of our sealing surfaces. So what I like to do is I like to kind of lift it up a little bit. Give me a screwdriver behind there, kind of pop it off. We'll take our seal and place it over here. Next, we're going to remove our flow collar. So when you remove your flow collar using a pipe wrench, you're going to grab back here on this part. This right here's got the most material. When you're using your pipe wrench and you install it, you want to take care, make sure it don't slip. You don't want to hit your stem right here because that stem is it's all sealing surface. Get you a good bite. Remove your lock washer, flow collar. Now we're going to remove our stem from our bonnet. We're just going to gently push it and it's going to come right out. So one thing you need to be aware of is there's a key on this that could potentially fall out. Next, we're going to remove our key. You're going to put your key down. We're going to clean our stem. We're going to inspect our sealing area on our stem, looking for any kind of scoring, pitting in our sealing area. And it looks pretty good. We're also going to look at our threads. Next, we're going to remove our packing on our bonnet. So you have this little snap ring right here you need to remove. Next, you're going to remove your bearing. You have a O-ring in there and a backup. And now we're going to examine the base of the seal area in the bonnet for any kind of pitting, scratching, anything that would keep it from sealing. Next, you will want to examine our keyway in our bonnet. Your stem is not supposed to rotate in the bonnet. That's what the keyway is for. So you want to examine it, make sure it's good, it's clean. With all of our parts clean and ready to install, I do want to point out that any of our items that have been broken or worn need to be replaced. We're going to take brand new seals from our seal kit and start our reassembly. First thing we're going to do is we're going to take our bonnet, we're going to install our O-ring and our bearing. What we're going to do is we're going to take some of our AP1, we're going to apply some grease on the inside. Next we're going to install our backup. We can install our O-ring. Push it all the way down the bottom. Then we're going to install our bearing. Next, we're going to install our snap ring. When we install our snap ring, you want to be sure it's fully engaged in the groove. That looks to be good. Have a little grease in there and you can rub it on the inside of the seal. So when we install our stem, it's already greased. Next, we're going to flip it over. We're going to take our AP5, our black grease, and we're going to grease up our keyway. The inside of it, the cavity. Now we're ready to take our bonnet. We're going to install it into our vise. Next, we're going to take our stem and apply a small amount of grease into the key area. We're going to install our key. Next, we're going to take our grease and we're going to apply it around this area right here. That's what travels on the inside of the bonnet. We'll make sure it's nice and lubed. We're going to grease up our key as well. We're going to apply a little bit of white grease to our seal area on our stem. Then we're going to install our stem into our bonnet. We're going to line up our key with our keyway. Then we're going to push our stem all the way in. Next, I'm going to wipe off the residual grease on the end. You don't want this getting caught in the threads for your Loctite. Next, we'll be applying primer to the threads of our flow collar as well as the threads in our stem. We'll spray our threads here. And then we're going to spray our threads on our stem. Now we're going to apply Loctite to the flow collar threads. Only apply to the first thread. Next, we're going to install our lock washer onto our stem. You want to make sure that your lock washer is centered on your stem. And then tighten your flow collar. Once your flow collar is tight, you want to double check, make sure your lock washer is lined up and centered with your stem. You want to make sure your stem and your lock washer nest smoothly into your bonnet. Feels really good. Next, we're going to install our bonnet O-ring. And that completes our choke insert build. Now that we're back over to our choke body, we're going to start installing our seat and our nozzle assembly. So first, we'll take our nozzle, we'll install it into our seat, like so. We're going to apply a little bit of grease to our O-ring seal area, and this is going to help hold the O-rings in right here. So we'll install our nozzle O-ring. Going to install our seat O-ring. We'll apply a little more grease to them. Next, we're going to take our hook tool. I'm going to install our nozzle and seat assembly into our body. You always want to line up your large hole to your inlet, unless otherwise noted. Lower that down in there. Next, we're going to install our retainer sleeve onto our choke insert assembly. So notice you have a notch right here And on your retainer sleeve, you have this pin. What we're going to do is we're going to install this to where it slides in flush like this. And then we're going to push our flow collar all the way up. And that is going to hold our retainer sleeve in for assembly purposes. If you notice, you have a large hole opening on the front of your retainer sleeve. This is going to face towards your inlet of your choke. Also, you have an alignment pin on your bonnet. This is going to line up with your pin mark on your body assembly. Now we're going to apply some grease to our seal areas on the body. Then we're going to apply some grease to our O-ring. Then we're going to install our insert assembly into our choke body. Lower it down easy. Your flow collar should go over your nozzle. You should be able to push your bonnet all the way in. Make sure your pin's lined up with your pinhole. Next, we're going to apply some AP5 to the threads of our stem. I'll put a little bit right here on the top of the bonnet. That's where our stem nut washer is going to ride. We're going to take our first stem washer, apply grease to it, install. Then I like to apply more grease to it. Nice and lubed up. Next, we're going to install our stem nut. I like to apply grease to the inside of the threads. And then apply grease to our face. And remember, these are left-handed threads. I'm going to screw our stem nut down. And then I like to apply grease on the outside as well as right here on this flat part. We'll run this down. Next, we're going to install our other stem nut washer and apply some more grease to the base of it. Next, we will install our bonnet flange. And we will install our bonnet bolts. We're going to apply anti-seize to our threads. I'm going to run them all down. And we're going to look at our gap between our bonnet flange and our body. And we want it even. Get a little more on the side. A little bit more. That looks pretty good. Now we're going to take our hand wheel and install it onto our stem nut. So we're going to make sure our bolt aligns up with our hole. Like that. And then now what we're going to do is we're going to run our choke all the way to the closed position. Get a little snug. Then we're going to bring it back to the open position. We'll run our bonnet bolts down. Check our gap. Looks good. We're just going to start ever so gently bringing our bonnet flange down, making sure it's straight the whole time. Looks good. We're going to check the operation of our choke. So we're going to go down into the closed position. We're going to bring it back open. Checking to make sure that the operation is very smooth. Next, we can leave our choke in the open position and we can torque our bonnet bolts to factory specs. Once you've done this, you're going to verify operation again. If by any chance the operation of the choke is not smooth, you can repeat the bolt tightening sequence. That feels good. And now we're going to install our calibration head. I like to take the washer, put a little bit of grease on there. It's already got grease in here, as you can see. Then we're going to install this like that. Next, we're going to take our calibration head. We're going to install it. And what I like to do is I like to install it up high on the stem. And then just kind of snug it a little bit. Now we're going to go back down to the closed position and see if our line's lined up with our stem nut. And that looks pretty good. We're going to go back to the open position and we're going to tighten our set screw. And then we'll go back down and make sure it lines back up, nothing moved. And we're good. And on our updated round calibration head, there's 2 set screws on there, one on each side. You want to make sure that you tighten both of them up. And remember, part of proper maintenance for your choke, you want to grease your choke periodically. And that concludes our P1 choke rebuild. If you have any further questions, please refer to the information below.